But when I did ask him, he said, anything I can do to serve, Pam. And so I told Gurudev that, and he just laughed. So that was very cool. And then there's another story, which is a story. There's like 3 stories. The first one is when Gurudev came to stay, and I had him stay at a devotee's home in the city because he was going to speak in the city, and I didn't want him to drive too far. I live far outside of the city, and we were doing some other events in the city too, so it would be more convenient for him. And so this devotee had bought a honeydew melon. So a honeydew melon, you might know, you might not know, it's a white melon. It's pale green really on the outside, and on the inside it's a nice color of green. And but I don't think about it as a white melon. I think about it as honeydew melon. So anyway, this guy, he takes all the food out of his refrigerator and he hides the melon in the back on the lower shelf, the lowest shelf. So no one else would find it because this melon was for Gurudev. And then he had lots of other food for the other devotees who would come. And so Gurudev finally comes from the airport, and David, the devotee, put him on the 3rd floor, and Banu was there too, and so it was very nice, and it was a very hot day, and so we wanted to offer him some water, of course, and something to eat. And so we cut up some watermelon and gave him some water and took that up, and he said, no, thank you. He would like some white melon. And I'm just racking my brain. What is white melon? How can I possibly get some white melon? I never heard of white melon. And, this is how our concepts, put us in a little box, right? We don't think of things as they are. We think of things as we think of them or we know them. And so I was kind of stuck in that place. And I was like, sorry, we don't have any white melon. And so he said, no, I want some white melon, And so finally Banu had to come downstairs and take all the food out of the refrigerator and to find the white melon. And finally she holds it up and I feel so stupid. And so we cut it up and we prepare it for him. So, and it's like the moral of this story is that when someone goes through the effort to choose a gift for him, it's not just a gift, it's an energy, and he's bound. It's like a law of Guru. He has to receive that gift. It's like the other part of the transaction of the love, right? And so there's 2 more stories that I want to tell that are related to that. And one is the story of, it's actually Rishi Nitya Pragya's story. I don't know if you've already heard it from him, but he told it to us one time he came to Chicago. And so he said he was following Gurudev at some event with a basket when people would be giving Gurudev things, and the different swamis or rishis or volunteers would be, or teachers would be putting the gifts in the basket for Gurudev, and maybe there were lots of baskets. So this woman, an elderly woman, gives Rishi Nitya Pragya this mango for Gurudev. And Rishi Nitya Pragya looks at the mango, and of course, if you're an expert in mangoes, you would know that a mango with a lot of black spots on it is probably spoiled. So this was a mango like that, and so he didn't want to give something, because he loved Gurudev so much, he didn't want to give him some spoiled fruit or have that spoil some other fruit too, so he throws it out. I mean, not there, because he didn't want to insult that woman, of course, but later he throws that out. And then what happens? as soon as they get back to Gurudev's kutir, Gurudev says, "Where's that mango? I'd like that mango, please." Poor Rishi Nityapragya was not able to give that mango. He tried to. So I'm sure Gurudev knew what happened to it. And then the third story is a beautiful story from Niyati Kala, who is, I think she's in charge of Telex in India. And she's a dear friend of mine, and she used to live in Chicago. And I told her this story, and she was so happy to hear it because she hadn't known the end. But Gurudev told this story, and what happened is Niyati's father is very he's a philanthropist, and he's very into homeopathy and making teas, and he loves Gurudev, and there have been many courses at their home and in Durban, South Africa. And so there was a silence course, and Gurudev was coming to South Africa, and Nyati's dad prepared some teas for him. He couldn't go on the course, so he prepared these teas specifically for Gurudev. And he gave them to a teacher who was going to be there. And then that teacher brought them and put them in his room. And then I think he got very busy and he wasn't able to give them to Gurudev. And so Gurudev was walking through the hall with a group of people, like he does frequently. And the teacher's room was there. And he says to everyone, "Now I'm going to steal." And so he opens the door of the room and he takes the tea and he laughs and he says, "These are stolen goods." And so they keep walking. And so I told that to Niyati, and she said, "Oh, I'm so glad. We never knew if he ever got that tea." So the same thing, the guru has to receive what you give. So.
Have you ever been through any tough times and when this knowledge and Gurudev really helped you?
Yes. I just, last year was a really tough year for me because, Gurudev says that sometimes our friends are our enemies and our enemies are our friends, and it's really just our karma and their karma, how, people behave. So my dad was always very loving with me, but then when my mother passed away, he remarried, and he married someone who he loved very much, and but who was very toxic, and she was okay with us mostly until she found out that she was not going to inherit his house, that he had given his house to his children, my brother and my sister and myself. And there was no way, it was in an irrevocable trust, and she couldn't have access to it ever, and by any means. And so then she became very mean, and then she made my dad really mean too. And so they moved out of that house, and she had purchased a house, and I was organizing the cleanup of it, because they had left it in a terrible, terrible mess. And there was one day when I was doing the Kriya for my Kriya group, and I felt so burdened. I mean, I felt like I was carrying just 1,000 pounds on my shoulders, and I don't have the best posture to begin with. I'm working on it, but and probably working on the computer, I have not so good posture, but it felt like I couldn't stand up straight. It was just like this was as straight as I could be because I felt all that stress on me. And a lot of, maybe it was myself giving myself that stress too. But Gurudev, I heard Gurudev's voice during the lying down part of the Kriya. And he said, I'll help you with your back. And so then when it came time to sit up, something clicked in my back and all that weight was off. It was just off. And it was so beautiful. And then the experience of cleaning that house, I mean, the basement was just such a mess. I just can't hardly describe it to you. But I would find things like little messages that I would think were from him or from my mother, and like a dime on the wall. When have you seen a dime on a wall? And I would be sweeping things and sweeping cobwebs off the wall, and a dime would come off, or I would find a $5 bill after I'd already found, I'd gone through everything, or I would find marbles. I used to love to play with marbles when I was a child, and I would find, after I'd already swept and other workers had swept, I would be sweeping and mopping, and there would be a marble. Like my favorite ones were the cat's eyes ones with some little design in there. And two other things happened. I was wondering, I wasn't really that much into dolls, but this thought came into my mind. I wonder what happened to that doll. Um, and I was cleaning out the garage, and I found this little container, and it was a container, it was an ice bucket. And so I opened it. I was like, what is the ice bucket doing in the garage? And I opened it up, and there was that doll. And it was just amazing. And I was also thinking about this other thing that I liked, some doll wrap. And that was also in there, two things. And then the other thing was that when we had cleaned out the basement completely and we're just taking out the last cleaning things, the mops and the cleaning fluids and all of that, there was a cutout about this big of a man, a picture of a man, and it looked to me like it was an umpire saying, like in baseball, I don't know if you have this in cricket too, saying, safe, safe, with the arms outstretched and the legs outstretched. And it was like, now you're safe, you're finished, this is good. And I was like, how could that be there? Where did that come from? We'd already cleaned everything. And it was just like these miraculous things that were like messages from the divine saying, don't worry, you're taken care of and you're loved by the universe. And even though this is a tough time for you, hang in there. Hang in there. It's okay. You're safe. And then I sent a picture of that man, and I should have brought it up here because I've kept it. And I showed it to my brother and my sister, and they said, that's not an umpire. That man that's a dancer. And because he's wearing really nice shoes and he has got really nice clothes on. That's not an umpire, in the dust and everything of the playing field. And so it was Gurudev's message of dancing through life like Shiva, and dancing through the trauma, dancing through the difficult times with a smile. So, yeah, using the knowledge and using the techniques during difficult times and knowing that Gurudev is with you really makes a difference. And I really felt him. Yeah. So my friend Takeda also went through a difficult time. it was really a scare for her. She's a friend of mine that she was my student who came to the course. She was visiting her family from Pakistan, and she had heard about the course. Excuse me, and she took it while she was visiting Chicago, and then she went back to Pakistan, and then she came back another time, and it was a good time to visit Chicago because Gurudev was just about to come. And she went to visit her sister a couple blocks away from where she was living. And she crossed the road, and as she was crossing, she was hit by a car. And in her bag, her bag protected her from the car actually hitting her skin. She had a bag with like a book bag with a copy of the Quran in it because she's Muslim, and a picture of Gurudev. And after the car hit her, it was probably going about 35 miles an hour, she thought, because she was knocked to the ground. She was able to get up and walk away, cross the street. So if you can imagine being knocked down by a car, you would be hurt from the car itself, and then from the impact of being smacked on the ground on the street. So, but she was not hurt. And so then soon after that, when Gurudev came, she was able to. I was driving him, and she was able to ride in the car and thank him for saving her. And he said that was truly a miracle, that she had not broken her leg or her hip or her arm or her shoulder or ribs or whatever. So, yeah.
You also got a chance to participate in Native American ritual.
Yeah, that was actually that same day. And another friend of mine, Dan Kriya from Northeastern University in Chicago, he had invited me to, after that, I guess, to a number of different conferences, and because Gurudev was there, and so able to promote Art of Living and our courses. And so what happened is at Northeastern Illinois University, there is a fire, and it's an ancient fire. It's a fire from the Potawatomis and the different Native American groups that were fire keepers for thousands of years, and they would keep the coals of this fire. And they started a fire at Northeastern Illinois University, and they would share spiritual knowledge in the Native American tradition around that fire. And apparently, Northeastern Illinois University used to be several thousand years before a spiritual center. And Gurudev had been invited by the president of Northeastern Illinois University to speak there, and then also to participate in a little ceremony in that Native American tradition. And so when he went to that site, one of the organizers, the Art of Living organizers, said, "No, Gurudev, you can't do that. That's tobacco. Saints aren't supposed to touch tobacco." And Gurudev just took it. That tobacco is a very respectful offering in the Native American tradition. It's offered to the fire. It's offered to Native American saints for requesting knowledge. And so Gurudev wasn't requesting knowledge. He was just honoring that tradition and location. Gurudev took the tobacco and offered it to the fire. So just in the in the tradition of the Native Americans, offering things to the fire, especially tobacco, or you could offer um, grass or some other herbs, just like we do in a homa. We offer grass or herbs or cow dung or ghee. We offer to the fire. Gurudev just offered that tobacco to the fire, like in a puja. We offer things too, and it's very interesting. In the Bhakti Sutras, which are happening right now, he said that enlightened masters don't really care about rituals. They honor them, but they don't need to do them. And they're not concerned about rules, right? They know they're beyond rules. So he, knowing that and knowing his infinite self, he just offered that, out of respect to that tradition. And it's interesting, those Native Americans, um, um, the other tradition is Anisabe, that's from northern Michigan. And those Native Americans had gone to Russia, and that's where they had met the art of living for the first time. They met Hannah Sard, who's a ashramite at the Bangalore Ashram, and she had introduced them to the art of living, and Gurudev just as a being, and they were very intrigued and wanted to meet him. And then some years later, I think maybe on that trip when he went to Northeastern, or at a subsequent trip, he went to Detroit, and they were invited down, and they did get to meet him. And they're quite wonderful people too. So.
Thank you, Pam, for all your time and so many beautiful stories, Guru stories. There is so much to learn from you, and we all look forward. We are all looking forward for many more courses and much more seva from you. Your advanced courses, silence courses, Sahaj Samadhi. Now you're taking online sessions also. So we are looking forward for attending your course. Thank you for your time.
You're so welcome, Jay. Jay Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev. See you in ashram when you come.
Thank you.